Good afternoon. I'm Alan Unell, and this series of videos is Healthcare Advocacy, where we address problems in the healthcare system and then take actions to try and make a better system for all of us. We have a lot of topics to go through today, a lot of them on recent advances in science and medicine. But before we get to them, down below in the YouTube description box, you'll find a link to the Healthcare Advocacy newsletter. You can subscribe for free. It is the text for today's video. All of the links and news articles and medical research and lots of links to healthcare related organizations and resources are available there. Let's get started. I want to talk about some young scientists who did just a tremendous job. This was a group of young students in Chicago, became bona fide biomedical scientists even before they started high school. This was in middle school. This was a partnership with the University of Illinois, Chicago, where I went to college. The middle school students collected and analyzed environmental samples, and they were looking for new antibiotic candidates, right? It sounds like a good science project. Anyway, one unique sample, goose poop, was collected at a local park. Guess what? It had bacterium that actually showed antibiotic activity and contained a novel compound that slowed the growth of human melanoma and ovarian cancer cells in lab tests. How's that for cool? Anyway, that was published by the American Chemical Society, and there's a link to that article there. I would recommend, if you can, actually go to the newsletter, because the next one actually has a link to another YouTube video put out by Oregon State University on some very cool research they did in the biomedical world. So what they did was 3D printing of soft tissue muscles. An Oregon State University researcher helped create a new 3D printing approach for shape-changing materials that are they are very similar to muscles. They open the door for improved applications in robotics as well as in biomedical and energy devices. You can go see the link. It is just extra. Go see the video. It is extra cool watching that thing work. Anyway, these are liquid crystalline elastomer structures. They were printed by David Roach of the OSU, Oregon State University College of Engineering, and some collaborators. These things can crawl, fold, and snap directly after printing. They're like little soft motors. Since they're soft, unlike regular motors, they work great with soft bodies, like muscle tissue. So they can be used as in implantable medical devices, for example, to deliver drugs to targeted locations, or as stents for procedures in a particular area, or as urethral implants that help with incontinence. It is really cool. I want to talk about another medical advance, which is also equally cool and unusual. Electroencephalography, EEG, that's brain scanning, right, is crucial for diagnosing neurological disorders and for facilitating brain-computer interfaces. I'm sure you've seen those where they hook up sensors on someone's brain and they have software trained to recognize patterns in the brain so that they can actually operate equipment just by thinking about it. Very cool, but there are problems with it. Traditional EEG setups with wet gels are cumbersome. They have cables that are difficult to deal with. It is labor intensive. It is very uncomfortable for the person, and they do degrade over time. Dry skin conformable e-tattoos are a comfortable and user-friendly alternative, but there's a problem with them because they have difficulty if you have hair, unlike me. Anyway, to tackle the problem, a development team used a non-contact digital printing for the e-tattoos directly on the hairy scalp. So it's like you sit under the 3D printer and it prints the tattoo on your head. Biocompatible inks were crafted for low impedance electrodes and high conductivity interconnects. The fabrication system includes a custom sensor layout design algorithm based on individual head scans, so they know exactly how your head is, and a 5-axis robot controlling a microjet printhead for safe, precise on-scalp ink delivery. After printing, these inks rapidly self-dry into conductive films perfectly conform to the scalp, right? Because they started with a scan of your head, with enhanced wearability, longevity, and skin adhesion compared with the gel electrodes and transfer tattoos. Motion imagery and air-related potentials are effectively measured by these printed e-tattoos. This innovation heralds a new era in on-body manufacturing of personalized e-tattoos. You can find a link to this in cell.com, and I have that in the newsletter. I want to talk about vaccines for a minute. First, let's talk about flu. I was doing some homework the other day, and I was shocked, really shocked to see that in older Americans typically get flu and RSV and things like that in the winter, and they can actually be really damaging and deadly. You'd be surprised how many people wind up in the hospital where you don't want to be. Anyway, I was shocked to see that only 50% of older adults get the flu vaccine. Now, if you've never had flu, you don't know how horrible it can be. The vaccine lessens the effect of the virus, and it can keep you from getting such a severe case that you have to be hospitalized. Let me point out that flu can be deadly, so go get the shot. Almost any pharmacy can help you. RSV. My wife and I went for RSV vaccines earlier this week, and we were pleased to see that our generic Medicare Part D plan, we have traditional Medicare, picked up the cost. RSV can be deadly to older adults, and bad news, only 24% of seniors get the vaccine. It seems that this is a one and done vaccine. You don't have to go back year after year. Anyway, almost any pharmacy can help you. Let me talk about childhood vaccines. Before we go too far, there is a link in the newsletter to the CDC guidance for childhood vaccines. Now, if there's a child in your sphere, do what you can to make sure that they get all their shots and they're up to date. And when I say child, that goes up to 18. Now, my daughter likes to remind me that correlation is not causation. It's good to remember that. As humans, we are wired to take care of a problem as quickly as possible and move on to the next problem. And that's a survival technique. But just because B follows A, it does not mean that A caused B. My favorite fallacy is that every mass murderer grew up drinking milk. So we should ban milk, right? Anyway, anti-vaccination campaigns fall into that ballpark. And part of the problem is that there is a time correlation when the measles, mumps, rubella vaccines are given and the onset of autism. Now, since B follows A, A must cause B. No. It's a quick answer. Quick answers to complicated problems are the real problem. Now, some misguided public figures say that the MMR vaccine causes autism. A quick way to protect my child? I'm not going to vaccinate. Sadly, that's an error. A contributing factor to this errant behavior is that the vaccines have been so effective that most people, grown-ups, haven't seen measles or mumps or rubella or diphtheria or, God forbid, polio. They have no idea of how deadly these things are. Measles causes death, not to everyone, but to many, and it hospitalizes many, and it turns out that if you get hospitalized for measles, you can wind up with lifetime impairment. It's so dangerous. Anyway, it also creates a public health hazard because you get to spread these diseases to others. I include in the newsletter an article. I'm not going to go through it in the video, but it is an article that was published in the National Institute of Health, and it contains a history of the anti-vax movement from the mid-1900s to today, and how Andrew Wakefield, who was a doctor in England, who made up the correlation between MMR and autism and lost his medical license for it. But people seem to have forgotten that it was done without science. There's another one that RFK Jr. focuses on. He goes, if it wasn't the MMR vaccine, the measles part, then it must have been the fact that they cleaned the vials with an ethyl mercury solution. Yes, it must be the mercury, because mercury is a nervous system poison. So that must be causing the autism. Well, the answer is no, it doesn't. Ethyl mercury is safe to use as a cleaner, but companies stopped using it. And guess what? Autism rates went up when they stopped using it. You know what? The truth is, people have been not vaccinating their children, and the autism rates are going up. Autism is generally genetically related. I have a link to a UCLA research report. You can find out a lot of the gene markers, but genetics are not the only issue. There are some environmental issues. If you've been exposed to tremendous poisons, that can actually damage genetics in children. So there's a lot that causes autism. And is it all known? No. But what is known is that vaccines do not cause it. Now, the problem I have is that this RFK Jr. guy wants to be the head of Health and Human Services, and we shouldn't let him. The first action I'd like you to take, though, is to make sure your senators don't let him get anywhere near healthcare. This guy is a danger and people will die. So let's tell our senators, do not confirm RFK Jr. or any other anti-vaccine or anti-science demagogue to HHS or the FDA or anywhere else in the government. You can send this ResistBot message, you just send a text message to 50409, 50409. It is sign, S-I-G-N, space, PCQNAC. Sign PCQNAC, and that's what you'll be telling your elected senators. Do not confirm RFK Jr. or any other anti-vaxxer to any other agency that has anything to do with health. They were sent there to protect us, so protect us. Now, the other thing I'd like you to do is in the newsletter, I have, again, the link to the CDC childhood vaccination requirements up through age 18. There's a child anywhere around you, make sure that they do what you can to get them vaccinated. Also, one more thing. I'd like to repeat this one every day until it's done. There's one more ResistBot you can take, and it is to tell your elected representatives, members of Congress, and senators to tell President Biden, publish the ERA. On your cell phone, just send a text message to 50409, sign, S-I-G-N, space, PYFIAA, and that's what you'll be telling them. Go and publish the Equal Rights Amendment. Okay, it's a long message today. Thank you for staying to the end. Send me comments down below, like, share, subscribe. Send comments or suggestions to healthcareadvocacy1, all one word, @gmail.com. Have a good evening.